Ah, is that any better? That's why Geoff can't hear me. Okay. I was just saying that Geoff can't hear me. Geoff's on mute as well. Just so you know, Geoff, I was on mute. Okay, all good. Right. So we are going to talk a bit about some leverage today and discuss. You're on mute there, mate. Your mic's muted. I'm going to bring my chart in here.
Hello, hello, hello.
Ah, there you go. There we go. We're back in the game.
Who muted
Uh,
me?
Oh, I don't know. It was Alison.
Well, no, she neutered me.
How are you, mate? Right.
I'm going well, mate. How about you? How's the
Yeah,
week been?
very good. The week has been good. Yeah, it's been really good actually. As we've seen some really good moves in the stock market. Interesting, really, what we've seen with the FTSE recently. We've seen. Let me just bring a clean chart in here. We've seen the FTSE 100 continue to push to the upside, and the reason that this is quite interesting is that if you compare this really to the S&P, let's just make this a little bit smaller. This is the move in the FTSE 100. Now I am expecting just a bit of downside, but let's see if that's likely. Here's the S&P, a lot flatter, and we could really go through all the currencies here. Sorry, all the indices here. Just have a look. Very flat on the Aussie 200s. This is the Hang Seng as well. This is the IBEX, pretty flat. Little move to the upside actually yesterday, but fairly flat today. Euro Stocks 50 as well, fairly flat. The CAC on, which is the one I'd really like to short on. He's looking a little bit weak here, but you can see an inverted head and shoulders form. Yeah, really nice range, and I would look for some downside here, but I'm looking for some downside in the FTSE just for a period, and the reason why is that is because of the pound. Now, if we look at the pound, then today the pound has been moving higher. Now, yesterday, what we saw, in fact, let me bring the pivots in so we can see this a bit clearer. Where are you, pivots?
John, evening, Simon.
There we go. So we can see this is yesterday's price action moving to the downside in the pound. And if we compare this back to the FTSE yesterday was moving to the upside, and many of the other European stocks and US stocks, global equities actually weren't anywhere near as strong. But I suspect because of what we've seen with the pound, that the correlation between the pound weakness and the FTSE strength is probably in play. Now we don't see the pound weakness today. You know, the dollar is very, very weak. Seen the dollar break to the downside against just about everything. So it's in big trouble. So the pound strength isn't necessarily best expressed on this chart. So if we bring in the euro versus the pound, we also see some pound strength today as well. So some euro weakness versus the pound. But let's just double check across the board. Pound Aussie just a little bit stronger today as well. You know, if we say that we opened up down here, we're certainly higher than we were when the day started.
A little bit more.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that Brexit's playing a big part in this, and it's a little bit back and forth as Barnier comes out and says something, and then it's countered with some good stuff. I suppose Barnier's been a little bit negative, but the French today said that they would likely veto any deal that Barnier brings back, which reneges on some of those fishing rights that they believe that they should get. So I think that there's still some trials and tribulations to come with this, but I think
it's amazing at the moment how fish is controlling a lot of economies.
Yeah,
Australia, not the least, because China. I don't know if they still are. I think they still are holding all our lobsters, our crayfish imports, and won't release them.
Right,
they're really playing hardball. They're now. Messing with our wines, our wine import. They're reckoning we're flooding the market with cheap wine.
Right.
Really? Get a grip.
Well, that's interesting, you know, and we were talking a little bit about stocks earlier on, but that would bring me on to looking for something with a stock, which I'll have a look into later on when I'm off air, but because it's too much work to do now. But that is interesting. Now that is a part of it. Now the other thing is that the UK has also announced that it will roll out the vaccine as early as today, I believe. So that's another reason that we're starting to see some decent upside in the FTSE 100. A couple of stocks as well. Have effectively given back the money that they were using to support themselves. Tesco and Sainsbury's came out with a better profit expectations. So they don't think they're going to need the money that was afforded to them by the government. So there's certain things that are happening out there that are looking pretty good. Now, I've just had a look at some of the stocks in the FTSE, and the travel stocks again are on a bit of a tear. Specifically, Rolls-Royce is doing very, very well today, up around about 7%. So it's vaccine related. It's potentially pound related as well. What's going on, and I think that's why we're seeing some upside with UK equities. The other really interesting move I think that we've seen in the last few days is with gold. I don't know if Fad is in the room, but Fad traded gold, and the idea was to hold on for dear life. And look at it go. I think Fad got in down here somewhere. I'm not exactly sure where he got in, but I think around about 1790 or something. And it's now at 1840, so almost $50. In fact, it is $50 higher than where he got in. Nice. And the seasonal aspect of gold looks like it might be around about to play out. So, I mean, if anybody... I beg your pardon?
Bit early, isn't it?
Little bit, yeah, a little bit early. So to see it sort of start to potentially bottom out down here is suggesting that we could actually see a decent run with gold going into the end of the year, and the same with silver as well.
Higher low would be handy, mate, in the next week or so.
Do you know what? It was really difficult, and I have to say, my first kind of thought on this was, can I get in down here? But that just hasn't established itself at all, and I've had to take a trade with both gold and silver because I don't know which one is the better of the two. I think silver tends to have a better percentage when it's going higher. Gold is a little bit more protection, so I bought a little bit of both just in case. But I didn't get a good price. I'll show you the price I got. It wasn't a price that I wanted at all. But this is just an example of when the chart doesn't look like when the price action doesn't look like it's going to come back to where you want it, you kind of just have to take a punt and get in. So I'm not very happy with my price, to be fair, but as I say, I felt like I had to take it when it was going up there and it came back down again. Didn't look like I was going to get the original price that I wanted. So I bought a little bit of silver there, and I bought a little bit of gold down at this particular point as well. Again, I thought an inverted head and shoulders might happen, but then things started to change, so I didn't really have much choice but to get in. So I am in both gold and silver, or I've added gold and silver to the other parts of the portfolio right now. Because, yeah, as you say, it is a little bit early and we might get some more downside, but all I'll probably do is continue to buy. Steffi saying, is gold due to go up because of the inverse relationship with the US yield curve? So the movement in gold will be multiple. There'll be multiple reasons for it to going up. So that may well be one of them. That may well be a reason. And what we are looking for is, any reason that we believe is valid to start getting into this. Now, my reasons aren't that.
You could nearly scratch one, couldn't you? One of those reasons, which would be the Indian wedding season. Will that happen?
Well, do you know what? That's a fantastic point, mate, because gold has got a seasonal bias during this period. And that's one of the reasons that, as you say, it does tend to kind of get quite a lot of quite a lot of demand through things like the Indian wedding season. And you're right, will that happen? And that's a really interesting point, because it would suggest that the seasonals this year may not play a part. So why buy gold and silver? Well, maybe the yield curve is something to do with it. My other sort of aspect is that while looking at some of the numbers, I think that gold, and this is a long-term play for me, it's not a kind of a trade that I'm getting into for the next month. It's much longer than that. I see gold as a potential piece of protection for global equities, because I just think that they could be under stress relatively soon. I think that the unemployment picture in America is quite scary. We got to NFP tomorrow. The pandemic is still continuing to rage. I think they had the most fatalities yesterday in America due to COVID-19. So
they're way over 250,000 deaths now as well. 280,000.
Yeah, and it's interesting. The UK have decided that they're going to launch the vaccine earlier than everybody else. And maybe when we see the same said over in America, then we might start to see further pickup in US stocks, and maybe gold doesn't really have a place then. I don't know, but there's a lot of debt, and the US dollar continues to weaken. And with the US dollar continuing to weaken, if the price of oil spikes too high, then that's going to cause a big bout of inflation. So it's an inflation play for me. It's a bit of protection as well. And if I can get a good price with gold, this is just a price. I'll probably go in again a little bit lower, then I will take it on. So there's a few things happening out there, mate. But I think most notably is the impressive move that the FTSE 100 has seen. Even though I am looking for a bit of downside, I'm kind of wondering why I would do that. I think there's another. Was it a package that has been accepted by Congress as well yesterday? So there's further aid out there as well. So things are looking pretty good. But there are some numbers from the States which I think are a little bit concerning. So when we go into Q1 of December, I think we could actually see a bit of downside in some of these things. So I'm positioning myself for that to happen right now. Let's see if it does.
Yeah, a lot of currencies are in the same boat. Pretty frustrating old week or so for me. Had a bit of a tangle there as I wait for retracements, which don't seem to be coming. They're little bits, but yeah, you'd like to see something like the Aussie pull back. A couple of hundred pips would be handy. Just won't do it because of that dollar weakness. The dollar's just tanking ridiculously.
Oh, it's in all sorts of trouble, isn't it?
It's now gone through, as much support as you can possibly imagine. And if you're not in these long, it's very frustrating trying to get in because this is overbought territory, but you also know there it is right there. You also know that that thing ain't coming back anytime soon.
No, looks like the next level down, doesn't it? So I think 88. Probably 89 is going to be seen. We're currently at 90.668.7. So another 170 in the dollar to the downside is looking ever more likely. Do you know one question I've got though, mate, is if we think about what the role of Ethereum, the role of gold, and the role of having equities as kind of like almost playing off against each other sometimes and playing in each other's hands in others. The dollar is obviously the big player in the market. I'm questioning whether at some point it might. For now, yeah, but is there a point where you just sort of go, well, the dollar has to be something that we do have to have as part of currency traders. We should own some dollars. I'm not saying it's here. I'm not saying it's now. But are we sort of like thinking that actually it really is RIP the dollar from here on in, or are we likely to start to see something else happen and then all of a sudden everybody's back on dollars, and this price is looking incredibly cheap rather than still looking relatively expensive as it continues to come down?
Yeah, great question, isn't it? And I think it relies more so not on currencies, but on the alternative to that. And I'm sure most of us would think cryptocurrencies at the moment because that's the way it seems to be going. But then you start to look at China and its influence on the world. You start to look at the debt that America's in. How on earth are they ever going to turn that around? I can't see it, mate. Common sense says to me that, and this is how I work, I'm looking for common sense, nothing more, that at some stage, exactly what you just said will be realized by real players.
Yeah.
And they will buy it.
Yeah.
Without question. Whether they're right or wrong is another story. But they will. They'll jump in big numbers and they'll go, wow, the US dollar is way below parity against everything else. It's now time to buy it up. And that will happen. I've got no doubt.
Is there also a case to be made to say that at some point the buyers will overrun the sellers just because there aren't as many sellers left? Everybody's sold already,
Both will be the case, yeah.
Yeah. everybody's kind of got rid of stuff. I mean, sorry, Lewis, I've just seen your question. Thank you, Mai. Do you see a retracement to the weekly or monthly pivot? Now, I think that was about gold, or was it silver? So let's just bring that up really quickly and have a look. Weekly and monthly pivots. Where are you?
Lewis, are you in pound Kiwi from last night? Were you in the room last night? I can't remember.
Sorry, let's do it on here.
We traded pound Kiwi last night, and I've taken both sets of profit. I've left a little bit in though.
Oh, nice work, mate. So this is silver. Would I see it coming to the monthly pivot? Absolutely. The weekly pivot, no. But yeah, the monthly pivot starts to look a lot more attractive, and I think that was the thing with silver, and one of the reasons I had to get in, because there was so much price action that was kind of floating around this area that you have to start thinking, well, that's a strong area. If it breaks through there, it's likely to hold. So I still think it's likely to hold coming down here. It may dip down a little bit more. Weekly pivot does look interesting, actually, looking at this trend line, but I wouldn't be banking on that too heavily. Oh, sorry, gold. I would have thought gold's the same. Yeah, gold coming down to weekly pivot looks a lot more likely. You know, it's probably going to bash its head here against the monthly pivot. So coming down to the weekly pivot, it looks like it could maybe start to give us the inverted head and shoulders from down there. But yeah, weekly pivot looks like a decent zone to start looking for the longs in gold if you're not in it already. Now on the pound Kiwi. And you know, I've got a bit of an opinion on this just because of the fundamental aspect of it. I really like the Kiwi. I think it's a decent currency right now. I really like the Aussie and I really like the Kiwi. They're the two that I would like to play. I don't particularly like the pound. The big thing with the pound is obviously down to Brexit. So if Brexit is to end up with a good outcome, the pound is going to rally. You know, it looks incredibly low price down here as it's at the lower end of the range. So it's going to rally, and it might rally hard. And but there's going to be some point where Brexit is kind of cleared up, and we can start to trade the pound on you know what's happening fundamentally in the UK economy. And the UK economy, I don't have much confidence with. So
it's going to falter there, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think so. Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at maybe if this would be interesting for me if this rallies up to this area here, which is the previous kind of horizontal level break. Now let's just have a look at this on a longer term time frame. So I'm looking at around about 0.927 as an area of interest. Now let's have a look what that is on the weekly. Yeah, looks like there is a bit of price action there because that's. Or some confluence there because that's a level there. There's a touch there and there's a closing level here. So this trend line looks to me like if the pound is to get sucked into any kind of long, it's likely to pause or stop here. As long as Brexit doesn't send it, you know, rocketing through. So if it was just down to the fundamental aspect of the pound, then I'd be looking at the short. But I like to start looking at it in this area. So around about the 0.927, I think would be interesting for the pound. But that would mean that I don't know whether you're long or short, mate. But that would mean that if anybody that is long, you've probably got some room. I think you've probably got some room to the upside before that. You're long. Yeah, I think that's probably the right choice in my opinion, mate. But obviously, the monthly pivot is going to be a bit problematic, but that looks like to me like a decent area to target. I don't know where you put your targets for that, but
I haven't actually got one. As I said, I've taken 2 lots of profit. My stops are at entry, so I don't really. Well, I do care, of course.
Yeah,
but, you know, I've got that bigger picture thing in mind, and if Brexit does turn out well, and it would need to, for the pound, I'm 3,000 pips from where we are now. 2.2.
Yes.
You know, and I've been squawking that for, you know, months and months and months.
Yeah.
Have I got confidence in that right now? Probably not, because of exactly what you've just said, that, you know, the Kiwi has been very, very strong. That said, you know, there's only 2 ways for a currency to go. One is up, the other one's the other way.
Yeah.
And eventually that is exactly what happens. So, you know, the more overcooked it gets, the more likely it is to fall. And I see that with the Kiwi at the moment, frankly.
Decent noises from Australia, mate, aren't they? Was it covering a low or?
Low? What do you do?
Low. Yeah, so I think there's some pretty decent noises from in the other day. I mean, I know things are bad, but when you sort of think about relatively speaking to what some of the other currency, what's happening to some of the other economies and currencies, Australia seemed relatively confident.
Well, I'm not sure again how long I've been saying that. Coming out of COVID, that there's really only two currencies that you want to back, and one is the Kiwi, the other one's the Aussie. For the reason that, and I hate to say it really, because it's like don't what's the word I'm looking for? Don't say something that could make something happen. What's the word?
Preempt?
No. Damn, it'll come. Don't put a curse on me. That's what it means.
Okay.
Because there's virtually no COVID. COVID doesn't exist really in New Zealand or Australia.
Yeah.
At the moment.
Yeah.
Okay, there are a few cases running around the place, but by and large, we're living the life that we've always lived. Certainly here in Tasmania, that's the case. And all the borders are now open for everyone to travel in. So, the economy should be starting to tick over nicely. We saw that in the GDP figures on Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever they were released. Look, but they were quarter-on-quarter figures. And as I said yesterday, I don't think you can read too much into that, because relative to the previous quarter, of course, they're going to be better because we're coming out of COVID, if you like.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's no question that they were going to be better. It was just a matter of by how much. So I didn't read too much into that number, to be honest. But that said, you've got to be bullish, both the Aussie and the Kiwi, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
What I'm extremely disappointed about, of course, is that I'm not in either.
Yeah, and there was probably a little chance of the Aussie. Let's have a look at the US 30 because Roy, I'll have a look at that as well. Steffi's asked about the US 30. So from Roy, gold bounced off the monthly pivot 4 hour for any trade set up now for gold. Okay, well, I'll have a look at that as well. In fact, I'll get to yours first because Steffi's going to stay in the room. So let's have a look at the gold trade again.
Yes, Simon. Commentator's curse is another way to put it. Gee, what is that word, for God's sake?
Don't. What's? I think I understand what you're trying to get across.
Jinx. Jinx is the word.
Jinx is what you're after.
All you had to say to me was cat, and I would have forgot it.
Yeah. Shukri, we forgot about Julian's advice. Platinum is flying. I didn't know he said about platinum. Which one is platinum?
NOE. Oh, yes. New opportunities.
Palladium. Oh, yes. This one, isn't it? Platinum.
How do you get time to watch all this stuff, guys? My God.
Yeah, it is doing well, isn't it? So there's probably some sort of seasonal indicator there as well. That's fantastic. Okay, so gold. Oh, right. Okay. Fantastic. So let's have a look then. So gold, is there a setup now? There isn't a setup now, and I would wait for something a little bit deeper if I were you, Roy. It bounced off the monthly pivot, but it's very it's close to it, isn't it? And they're kind of stacked pretty close to each other as well. They're not quite in the right order just yet, but it won't be too much longer, but before they are. But the monthly pivot is still slightly above that. Slightly above that weekly pivot. Now, I think, isn't there a 200-day moving average sitting up here as well? I don't have those on my chart, but I think there is a 200-day moving average sitting somewhere in this area. So have a look at that as well and see what, in fact, let's put that on. Moving averages, here we go. Let's put the 200 on. Now I'm going to start with it as an exponential, but no, the 200 moving angle is down there. So let's just change this and see what it looks like on a simple. Okay, so it's in a similar kind of place, actually. Price action being above this 200-day moving average is significant. So it does say to us that that there is probably some more buying that could go on in gold. I don't think there's an opportunity here for this really the simple reason that there doesn't look like a lot of room until the next potential resistance area. So I think you're looking for a dip first. Half decent dip. Yeah, 1800 for the simple, is it? Yeah, got it. Yeah, so that's where I've got it as well. So that's I don't think we necessarily come down to that point, but maybe around about somewhere near the weekly pivot looks like it could happen. Let's pull up a few levels and see what the likelihood of that is. Let's go in 4 hour. Yeah, 4 hours just broken through. I get that, but this is looking a little bit overcooked just because of the angle of the actual move to the upside. It looks like it could come back a little bit. But let's see what we got. So we got a very tenuous looking trend line here, which it could come into. I'm going to get rid of this. We got the fib we need to pull up. Is this not going to work for me here, is it? Oh, I've still got that other fib. All right, pull up your fibs on your charts, but I'm going to pull it up on this other one and stay on this chart, and I'll tell you where the fibs are. Gold. There we go. Right, the fibs on this.
Thank you, Crystal. I just saw your note. Yes, I got there eventually. Jinx, indeed.
There's a 38% retracement at 18, around about the 1815 area to round it off, which looks really good. You know, this would be a really good retest of this area here. So I would suggest around about 1850 would look around about right to me for that, Roy, for that to come back into this area here. And then start to move to the upside. Now let's just have a look at what that looks like on longer term timeframes. Looks good on this longer term time frame because it looks like a previous area that would refuse to come down. So a retest there. Looks like there's a little bit of support over here as well. Can't see it so well on the weekly, and you can see it here on the monthly. You know, on the monthly, it's slightly higher. It's around about the 1823 level. So somewhere between 1815 and 1825 looks to be around about the right spot. And the 1815 is this daily pivot. Sorry, 1825 is around about the daily pivot. So daily pivot looks I'm not going to say the worst, but it doesn't look as good as it won't be as good a price as it came down here, but it looks like that area could hold it up. This is too early. This is way too early for this to get held up. Now, with the Dow, I'm looking for downside in equities. And we do need to talk about leverage and how we could take advantage of a move to the downside in equities. In actual fact, I'm going to take a trade on the FTSE fairly soon to express this. I'm likely to sell the FTSE off in the next 15 minutes, I would suggest. Let's just have a look at this on a 5. Right, you see here that there's no, have I got pivots here? Yep. There's no break of structure here. So when we talk about the structure, this is the structural low here. So on the 5-minute chart, there's no break of structure. What might end up happening? So this is what I'll probably look for because we're about to sign off from this show. So anybody that's not in the US show, let me give you what I'm going to look for here. Whether it transpires, I don't know, and it's not the only way I'll trade this if it doesn't transpire. But this will be a good scenario. If that becomes a level of support, would be good. Then price comes down and bounces and then gives us a reversal pattern, giving us that right shoulder, the head, and the left shoulder. That would be an ideal scenario. Now you can trade it here, which is risky, or you can trade it if it drops and retests. So you're looking either at around about the 64.70 level, or you're looking at around about the 64.60. When those numbers are said aloud, 10 pips is nothing. So what would be a good way to trade it if it was? There's the two options are trade it here with stops at the highs, or trade it here with stops at this the top of the right shoulder. Sorry, trade it here if it comes back, same price. Trade it here if it comes back with stops at the right shoulder. So I'm just gonna wait on the FTSE and see if those either of those scenarios Oh, the break of the structure. So, so this is the way I think about it, and I think Geoff's the same. So if I think like this is a low down here, that means that this is a structural point because it is a low. So the low end of the cycle, and it doesn't matter what time frame you're on. It's about a cycle. This is the high end of the cycle. So there's a structural point here that needs to be broken through to get us going in the opposite direction, to keep us going higher, sorry. Now, it retraced here, and the cycle stopped there before it started to go. So that becomes a structural point now for the trend. So I've got structure here. I've got structure on the higher low. And that's about the only place. So when I think of these two areas, if I was thinking about, if I was confident this was going long, which I'm not, I'm looking for the short, but if I was confident it's going long, I consider a trade here and I consider a trade here because these are structural points. Everything in between for me has got no validity, unless there was something else in the way, and that I'd missed, which I could do, of course. But otherwise, I'm looking for these points of structure. So this structural point here and this structural point here. And this is the same for every single time frame. So if it breaks down here, then it's broken through the higher low. And we know that when it breaks the higher low, that area can then become the lower high. So that's what I look for. I'm looking for the break of the upper structure, and for that to become the new high of the new lower high of the lower structure.
Yep, happy days. 100% on board with exactly that explanation, guys. We've got to fly. Got to go into the US session proper, and we're about 43 minutes away from the US Open. Those of you who aren't subscribers into the US session, we wish you a happy weekend, and I hope it all pans out beautifully for you, as does the trades that you're in or perhaps about to enter. Have a great weekend, everyone. Those of you who are US subscribers, of course, we'll see you very, very shortly. Bye-bye for now, everyone else.